mythologies of the green man and the stone burial sites and stone circles and all that. When we got together in college as photo majors, we were building environments in our apartment that we were dragging stones in and plants in and building costumes for ourselves, started to cover ourselves with leaves and making plant masks, and truly trying to embody this kind of rural mythology. And you'll see if we ever manage to get the video to extract from here, or the slideshow, how we've tried over 40 years working with that kind of green man myth as one of our main storylines through our work over the years, and we continue to the most recent times. And as since 86, when we were 85 and 86, when we were doing all these experiments, we've seen the whole climactic shift and have moved towards ways of using the green man himself as a figure, kind of a mascot, trying to work with all of us to kind of shift the consciousness. And so what everyone's presentations have been very much more science-based. We've worked with a whole lot of scientists in other projects that aren't Green Man related. We worked with NASA in a Mars program, and we worked recently with physicists in a gold mine in North Dakota, South Dakota, studying dark matter. So we love the scientific process, but with the Green Man, from the earliest times, we decided to sort of more go into the hallucinogenic knowledge that the plants themselves were giving us. I'm going to take some water. We got it. Excellent. Thank you. And here's one of the photos that Richard and I were doing in college. That's me on the left and his girlfriend on the right, wearing our little Green Man masks, and little miniature models of the stone circles that we were totally fascinated with, and the sort of the ways pre-Christianity in Britain and in Brittany, where I live now, where the plants were communicating, and these were places, necropoli for the dead. And the Green Man is a figure who's kind of a connection between birth, growth, and death, and that continuous cycle. And at some point in the last 20 years, we went on a trip to Cornwall and went inside of Fugu, which is one of these underground sites from that time period. And I did see spiraling in the darkness these two snakes that I was realizing in the midst of this kind of vision that was sent to me in that underground tunnel, that it produced also in my wife when we were under there, the same vision that we were looking at DNA. This stone sacred space was just generating that in us. It's just, that was without drugs. So this is a Green Man from Bamberg Cathedral. It's medieval, and it's the kind of representations that Richard and I were obsessed with as a way to represent what we were sensing, that the plants knowing. And this is Arcimboldo, a Renaissance artist who was constructing people for Emperor Maximilian, these wonderful different versions of the seasons. And that also was a good source for us. Hold on one sec. This is a chapel we built back in 1995. There's honey vials on the outside there, each with a different geometric or organic shape that we claim was constructed by the bees out of wax. And there are layers of different types of honey. And we have the stories of different hallucinogenic honeys, because bees do actually produce hallucinogenic honey from a number of plants, especially the certain type of rhododendron in Nepal. And so the whole mythology inside the chapel, this is looking up at the ceiling, where these are the gods are much bigger than life size. And on the walls, you see smaller paintings there of everyone sprouting different plants with the names of little locations in the West Country of England, and the larger gods are all around there, but they're all sprouting it under the influence, which you see on the outside of the chapel, of the different hallucinogenic plants that the bees were gathering honey from and making hallucinogens. So it was our way of trying to visualize this connection. And the bees would come down the center beehive, and there was a head made with beeswax and bread in the center. And it was just some of our earliest attempts to doing that. And at the same time, we started doing portraits of each other with an 8x10 camera, covering ourselves with whatever vegetation we could find in the fridge drawer or outside, celandine, when we were young, sprouting dogwood, I think, for me there, but different ways to represent the state of connecting with these plants in that same mythology. But we were using honey that drips on my face to stick the plants to us. This is an Edward Curtis photograph. He was an American photographer who tried to get in with the Native American tribes and photograph the last of the rituals that they were doing in their costumes. And we were influenced by some of those costumes. This is similar to a Northwest Indian type of costume made out of yew branches with red bananas on Richard, and mayapple, and a little bit of cocoa on his lips. So we were sort of starting to become the Green Man in that project. There's another thing stuck with the leaves. That's me with another leaf for a nose, and tulips and ferns. And this was all for another chapel, a photographic chapel. This is probably around 1998. We made a kind of liquid light emulsion and had a light inside, and there was you could see all these chapel of a Green Man. And there's another one from a church, I think Norwich Cathedral in England. And that's the Green Man, the larger than life-size head that we made inside that chapel when you looked inside the little window and saw him made out of olive leaves, or I forget, no, lemon leaves, that one was. This is in that time period, we spotted this photographer who was documenting some of the Austrian and German traditional festival costumes, often for May or for winter or harvest. And it connected with us in a deep way that we could have full body costumes that would connect in a kind of a larger cyclical annual festival, carnival, the pagan leftovers of where we all came from as Europeans. If it seemed to both Richard and I, who neither of us was particularly happy with the monotheism that had been our family's original traditions, and that we were connecting far more to these other versions of an animism that worked for us. And so this is, that was one of our interns, I believe, who we did a little video of him trotting across the road in a site in Cape Cod, Massachusetts, which was an abandoned Air Force base from the 60s that the plants had started to retake over the land. And we were trying to show a sort of speculative world, post-apocalyptic, where the plant-human hybrid is starting to inhabit our spaces. There's me placing the great Green Man costume on my Chilean intern there, who was happy to play the character in the land of wild roses. So we had started to write stories about this carnival troupe called the Troupe of Fledermaus, the bat troupe, because there was a white-nosed fungus affecting all the bats in North America, since a disease that had already conquered Europe many years before came to America, and there was no resistance. And so one of the characters in our troupe was a bat, another one was this Green Man character, and these these performances that we were doing, they were all in nature with zero audience other than the plants and insects and animals around us. And that sharing of our theater for the true audience for us was much better. And also, two introverts do not like audiences. Yeah, there, the green man's leading me over the terrifying little bridge. That did go on, but like I think at that moment, right after that shot, my glasses fell out of my pocket and forever down into the bog. Lots of incidents of this manner, the accidental strangenesses that happen, but the moments like this of the green man wandering the paths through the roses are some of the results. We love to shoot in both the black and white and color for the kind of different kinds of vision. Sort of the night vision is what black and white often represents for us as well. And they're the one in the show, which I'm so pleased the lupins that were growing wild there while we were creating this costume with plants from that meadow have so connected well with the various researches of the amazing artists that we've been fortunate to connect with here in our not quite so scientific explorations of this. There in the marshes, the green man looking wistfully off. And sometimes the green man's an artist trying to paint another green man. So performing and understanding it through humor and being the fool has definitely been our path. So it's also fun when you are working with real scientists for that fool mind to come in and talking with these advanced physicists inside the mine 2 kilometers deep a couple of years ago was incredible. And they did understand how our absurdity and our humor can actually make some kind of leaps that connect with advanced science. That there is an immense humor in the way that the world and the universe is sort of formed. And I think plants understand that humor as well. Here's a dinner party between two green men with all their family portraits on the wall and plates. There's plates on the table. I think I have the drawings that went on the plate, and there's a wild man under the table drunk. The Green Wanderer and Death Fruit as the cherry tree death paintings that we did. They're life size or death size, as it may be. And these are the designs that are on that dinner service for the green men. They're one for every month of the year, starting top left with the winter, etc., going down, which these are the original paintings in ink before we did ceramic decals to make a setting. And another constant theme for us is this sort of death floating in flowers of Ophelia from Shakespeare, and this beautiful painting by Millet that always appealed in its life-death threshold realm in our favorite element, the sort of netherworld of the bog, which is sort of the Bardo space of the general Northern Europe, where often they find bog bodies, often murdered through wonderful rituals that were meant to appease the gods to bring them back and last them forever. So this is, these eventually all made into a deck of tarot cards, and this in the deck of tarot cards is the magician. And there's a little raccoon in the bottom right corner. It's a little hard to see now, but he crawled up from being hit on the road in front of my house the day of the shoot and walked his way before he died right next to my car. So I knew he wanted to come with for the shoot I had arranged with my friend, who is a bit of a shaman and a musician and an amazing artist. And so we both knew that we had to do, and right during that shot and right after, we created a funeral for the raccoon who had died and wanted to be ritually buried. And I had already assembled in the car the various death masks and all that. So it just, there was an interspecies communication there. And that was, cannot remember which card she ended up. Oh, the sun, because it's a sunflower. So that was the sun card in the deck. And I don't remember which one she was. She might have been one of the extra cards, which have a very strange thing. But she's all fruit and fruitfulness. There was apricots floating in this. These were all floated in like a tank I built in the back garden of our house by the marsh, about 3 meters by 3 meters, 50 centimeters deep. And I set it up with water, but almost immediately there were eggs in there, tadpoles were forming. All summer long we were shooting. This was during the COVID first summer when we were confined. So my studio was then in this back garden, and we started having to no longer do the shoots with the people in them. This is one in the studio that was, I can't remember that particular card, but these are another Archimboldo. And so we were doing in that tank these scenes, and then the frogs would jump into almost every picture. There was, by the time midsummer came around, 20 or 30 different frogs dive bombing into all our versions for the cards. One of the kings. That's something of swords because it has these sickles. We're bringing in the history of wheat and bread, and that the different suits were all involved in the kind of ritual cutting of the sheaves of wheat in Europe, which is also the cutting of the head of the sacrifice. So there's a super interesting interconnectedness of the folk traditions throughout most of Europe that goes back to this sort of tradition. So this is yet another vegetal, the queen of swords, I think that was. And there's Botticelli's Venus, Birth of Venus, and another shoot where that ended up being similar with other plant, human, fawn, Roman mythology. This is working with Dionysus, the mythology of Dionysus for a photo shoot. The maypole is another great ritual way that we've celebrated, and dancing on the ice in another of the climate sort of dances that we were working with. And trying to talk about a green revolution by using the French Revolution as an example and the need for that in our absurdity, futility, captivité. And Poppy Man and his hallucinogenic nature. And she seems to be zonked out by one of these plants. And some of the elder hag ladies teaching us from the forest. This relates to the local Latvian oak wreath practices that we've been always fascinated with. Up here you have a pagan tradition that lasted longer than almost anywhere else in Europe. So we love seeing the costumes and the various emblematic shapes made with things gathered from the fields here. And here's a miniature painting, it's maybe this big, on vellum of a green man. They're falling from to two different landscapes as a sort of symbol of going between worlds, and the male-female concept for that one, and the branchy, two different seasons, the burning of the one. And this is a fairly recent series where we are trying to work with death, and we're doing a dance of death in another part of the series less related directly to the plants, but this is some still lives with skeletons as puppets, and the death and rebirth in there, another miniature green man, and green man riding green man death, and all the cycles there together, a wild man wearing a great wreath with an actual human skull, and the beauty of roses and time, and all those connections in these niches, which would make a columbarium a kind of a burial niche if we build the whole chapel with all of these in them. So that's the basic realm of the stream of the Green Man through all our work for 40 years. And I'm happy to answer any questions about that, but it's our absurd world.